everybody, Charlie Stevens here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another guitar lesson. Okay, so recently we've been learning about the boom chuck, the boom chucka, the boom chaka-laka-laka, all that kind of good stuff. So check out those videos if you haven't seen those. Today I'd like to talk about the boom chuck dilemma. Okay, so what I mean by that is when we're alternating the bass, as we learned how to do in our boom chuck video, we learned to alternate the root and the fifth in the bass. Okay, so the dilemma is sometimes the fifth of the chord we're currently on will be the root of the chord that we're heading to, and we'll double up the same note and it will get a little anticlimactic, and so we don't want that. We want to double up the root of the previous chord, so when we get to the root of the new chord, that one sounds fresh. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Allow me to explain. So a 1-4-5 chord progression is the most common chord progression because it uses all of the major chords in a key. We only have 3 major chords in any given major key, and those chords would be the 1-4-5. So in the key of G, 1 is G, 4 is C, and 5 is D. Just going through the alphabet. G, A, B, C, D is how I figured that out, right? Okay, so that's our most common chord progression, and we can actually boom chuck to our heart's content when we have that chord progression if those chords are in that order. We'll never run into this dilemma, actually. So when we do the G, next chord is C. Well, we just did a G and then we did a D note. Neither of those two notes are C, so when we go to C, we can do that. Now when we're on C, we go C, G is our second bass note, right? Well, neither of those are D, which is our next chord, so we can go right to D. When we get to D, we're playing D into A, and then neither of those notes are the next chord, which is G, so we can go right to G from there. Okay, so that one does not have a dilemma, and there are lots of songs that go 1-4-5 in that order. 1-4-5 back to 1 starts all over. Many songs do that. So when you're playing a song with that exact chord progression, you won't run into this dilemma. You're actually able to just play the boom chuck with the alternating bass the way you're supposed to. Why don't we try that way first, and then we'll look at a few times where we rearrange the order of those chords, and we'll see where we run into this dilemma, and we'll also talk about how to fix it. Okay, but first we'll do the one where we don't even have this dilemma. We can just do regular boom chucks for each chord. Okay, so at the very end, I'm going to do a boom chaka-laka-laka. Okay, so boom chucks all the way through. 2 measures of G, 2 measures of C, 2 measures of D, back to G for 1 measure of boom chuck, 1 for boom chaka-laka-laka. Okay, want to try it with me? This is example number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that same example but a little faster. Here it is again, example number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, great. So in example number 1, when we have those 3 chords in that order, we never run into this dilemma, okay? But once we start rearranging the order of these, we will run into this, okay? So in example number 2, we're going to go to the C chord and then back to the G chord. Okay, so if we're going from a C chord to a G chord, we're going to run into this dilemma because my second bass note of my C pattern is the note G. C on beat 1, G. So if I want to go to a G, then I play a G again right away. Okay? And that kind of is less desirable than if I were to arrive on that G. Okay, now sometimes when I'm not familiar with the song and I'll be at a jam or something and somebody will teach me a new song and I'll be playing it, sometimes I might do a regular boom chuck and kind of break this rule, and I don't think it's really that egregious. Sometimes it sounds okay, but in a really ideal sense, we want to try to use this trick where we don't double that bass note. How do we not double a bass note? By doubling a bass note. As paradoxical as that sounds, it's actually true. So if I were to go C, G, and then to change to G, and it's still G, I doubled the bass note as I changed chords. So instead what I'll do is I'll double a bass note while I'm on the C chord, and then when I get to the G, it will be a brand new G note. So C, hear that? Same note, right? C in the bass, C in the bass again. Leads us back to G. Sounds a little nicer than this, I guess. It's kind of a preferential thing, but I do think that this is a better way to do it. You can use your ear though. If you're brand new to this boom chucking thing, this might be a little bit too much for you, and that's okay. You can revisit this once you're more comfortable with the regular patterns and add this in, because it is sort of a finer detail, but I do think it really helps you sound like you know what you're doing. So I want to encourage you to kind of think about this and get into it. Okay, so we're going to practice this together. In example number 2, we'll have 2 measures of G. Alternate our bass, business as usual for those two. Then we'll go to 2 measures of C. The first measure we can alternate. The second we're going to double our C bass note back to G. 1 measure regular and one boom chaka-laka-laka just for fun. Okay? Okay, so let's try that together. This is example number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that one a bit faster. Example number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, that's example number 2, okay? So when we're going from C to G, we're gonna have the dilemma thingy that I'm talking about. So we're gonna have to double up that C note in the measure right before we go to G. Okay, hope that's making sense. Don't worry if not, it will become more and more clear in time. Now I'm going to show you where we would run into the same issue when we're going from our G to our D chord, right? Because when we're going G, the alternating bass note we use is a D note, right? Doesn't sound that bad to go double it up really, but again, it's more desirable if we can save that D note for when the D chord happens. It will be, otherwise it'll be a little anticlimactic, I suppose. It just kind of gives it away a little too early, right? We want to kind of save that for that moment and it will sound a little more exciting. So again, the way I fix that is by doubling up the G note. Okay, instead of going to a D on beat 3 of that measure, I'll just do 2 G's. Then when I get to the D, okay, so in this one, this is example number 3, we're going to do 2 measures of G. The second one, we're going to double up the bass on G though. So 1 regular boom chuck, 1 with the doubled root to D, regular D, back to G, and then boom chaka-laka-laka. Okay, that's the whole thing. Super easy. Example 3. Let's do it nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that one a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, well that's it. That's the boom chuck dilemma, and that's how you deal with it. Not too bad, right? You just kind of double up the root note instead of alternating to the 5th if the chord that you're going to happens to be a fifth away from the chord that you're on. Okay? So if you're on G, the fifth of G is D. If the next chord is D, you don't want to play a D note in your bass as part of the G chord. You want to wait till you get to D. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Don't worry too much about it. If it doesn't, just keep plugging away in this course and it will hopefully make more sense as we go. We're going to put this into a song in our next lesson, and you'll see where we'll kind of need to do this stuff. Sometimes we'll be able to do our regular boom chuck pattern. Sometimes we'll have to prepare for the next chord by doubling the root in the bass. And in our next video, we'll check out a real song, and we'll see how that works. Thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying this course, please subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you in another guitar lesson really soon. Thanks again.